Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. FanDuel was buzzing all weekend. Man, I had some bets go awry last night. I had some bets go against me last night that were absolutely
not the best.
Sickening. I had one last night. My wife was wondering coming down the stretch, and admittedly, this is degenerate behavior. I was engaged in the game. I thought it was a great fourth quarter, great overtime. The first half was sleepy, but that's kind of what you want, right? Out of a Super Bowl, you want big moments at the end of the game. You want a tight game, could go either way. And on FanDuel, you can bet the correct score. You can get big odds. And I was on the Niners and the under, so I was sprinkling not a lot of money, just a few bucks on all types of different variations of the score. And I had a bet, Niners 22, Chiefs 19, that paid big money. And it's all I'm thinking
Were you Kramer?
Dude, I'm Kramer. When it's 4th and 1, I told my wife, I literally said this. You can ask her. I'm like, I can tell you what's going to happen. 4th and 1, Mahomes is going to run for it and get the first down. And that's exactly what he did. And I'm yelling at Shanahan. I'm yelling at the Niners. So not only did I was heavy on the Niners. I had McCaffrey MVP, which I think he would have won.
How did you let that guy talk you into Niners? Honestly.
I don't know.
What did he say this time privately? Take us behind the curtain to that conversation where you would have said, the joke's over, Al's brother. This is Mahomes.
Yeah.
We've done it 3 times or twice. And we've lost on it. How did you get into it? What did he say for you to be like?
Yeah. Well, he gets into the moon and he talks about
come
the
on,
stars.
I'm being serious. It's not about the moon.
Listen, all right. The Niners were the better team. It is Mahomes. Mahomes on his own should have known better. I thought Purdy would play well. I thought he played well last night. Didn't think he was great. Didn't do anything miraculous, but thought he was pretty good. Didn't turn the ball over. I thought Shanahan would find a way finally to get it done. I looked at the run game. I thought McCaffrey would cook. He barely ran the ball again in the second half, eerily similar to what the Ravens did the week before. There's a number of things. And it was an overtime game. Let's not pretend like the Chiefs won 40-10.
But it's that's who won. Mahomes
I know
won.
They did. I know they won. They covered. And credit to them. And I'll say it now. I'm not going to stick to it. I'll never bet against them again. Of course, I probably will. But credit to Mahomes. Credit to Andy Reid. And, Al's brother's going to have the answer for it, and he's still kicking around. He'll join us in studio in about a half an hour, okay? You can grill him yourself. We got Luke on in about 25 minutes. Luke Willson will join us to get the breakdown of the game. Then Al's brother will come in, and we'll settle this once and for all. Hayes and Bro versus Team Owen Wilson, all right? So we'll get to that later in the hour. Chris Johnston coming up here in a moment. Morgan Rielly, we believe, is going to accept the in-person hearing. We'll fly down to New York tomorrow. Probably won't get an answer until tomorrow night or the next day, I guess. We know he's not playing tomorrow. He's suspended indefinitely until they come up with an answer.
Is there any reason that flight wasn't today?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wonder why that wasn't today.
Yeah,
it happened Saturday. Why would it
It's a great question. Why
Sunday
can't you do
morning?
This?
Get on the plane, pal. See you Sunday at lunch.
Yeah,
because
I don't get it.
Zadorov got suspended after the game for two games. The shoulder to the head of. Lucas Raymond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
They suspended him for 5 minutes after the game. How do you not? I don't know. Obviously in person it's a lot more longer and drawn out. But they could have got on the bird on Sunday and had this put to bed by today.
Meet you for lunch.
Do you feel like they have to accept the in-person meeting? I know we live in a Zoom world, but
dude, I would have just said Zoom me. Fire up a Zoom. I'm not getting on a bird. It's too much travel in the league. I'm not flying down there.
But are you doing yourself a disservice by basically saying I'm too cool to come down?
No. But let me ask you this: what's Morgan Rielly going to say to change anybody's mind?
Exactly. You don't think they already have a number made up? It's hit me with it. I'm not flying down there to hear it. Thanks.
Although you did bring up a good point. Jason Spezza got 6 and they reduced it to 4 afterwards, but that's just money back in the pocket. I can't think of any case that's been, challenged or appealed or okay, we got it wrong the first time.
Very rarely does that happen.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to, Is there anything you can think of? I don't think I can think of one.
Guys, we can ask CJ. They could have said you're suspended for 2 games after the game. This thing is blown up into a story that's it's insane.
Well,
it's Toronto, man.
So you believe the Leafs have a legit gripe, like what Keith said today. You believe that the league, because it's Toronto, because it's hockey night, there's more of a spotlight on it?
Hayes, I've been around the game my whole life. I watch games, all of us do, every night. What I saw transpire in Ottawa is a 2-game suspension.
Okay. So then, all right. That's what I'm just
why
asking.
He's flying to New York is beyond me. Well, I bet you if you had a candid moment with Ridley Gregg, he would say, give him 2 games for being a dummy, and that's the end of it. I guarantee it.
I would have liked to see him drop his sticks, and we wouldn't have had anything.
Yes.
And, that would have been a brawl or a version of it, and life would go on. But the reason I said 4 is everything I can think of the cross-checks to the head have been in the 4 range. Matthews, I think, didn't.
Matthews was 2. Perron was 6.
Be careful, Noodles. Bro. You're going to get an influx of videos.
I know.
Influx.
I know. No, listen. There was it Bufflin? That was awful. That one was 4 to Kreider,
right? That was really bad.
That was vicious.
That was bad.
But I'm saying, I always feel like that was the number. I don't know why. I pulled it kind of out of my rear, but
Bufflin had one against the Rangers that he didn't get suspended for.
Yeah.
No, it was JT Miller.
Oh.
JT Miller for the New York Rangers in front of the net. I thought he broke his head right off of his body.
That's right.
Anyway, we got CJ.
Yes, let's bring in Chris Johnston, our TSN hockey insider. CJ, the Leafs, based on what Sheldon Keefe said today, the Leafs seem to believe that because it's them, it's going to be a bigger number. Do you sense that that's what they're saying and that's the way they're feeling?
I certainly think there's an element of that. I don't know if you've seen the stats going around, but Jeff Vayette has put this out on Twitter, and basically, if you look in the era of since Peros has run player safety, the Leafs have. I'm pretty sure they lead in hearings, lead in games lost due to suspension, and those types of things. So I can't imagine Sheldon just dropped that in there today. Speaking off the cuff. I mean, I think this is a feeling that they have, and it's hard for me to say if it's true or not. Some of those Kadri suspensions, when you think back to the playoffs, that's to relitigate history. Might have been excessive. In this case, I think cross-checking, pretty clearly is something that the league is clamping down a little bit more. I mean, the David Perron suspension of 6 games was a lot in December. I mean, not many guys get 6 games or more on any suspension, and the Perron link to Rielly's fairly obvious, just given that both have been in the league a long time and don't have a history of crossing the line whatsoever. So I don't know. This thing has taken on a life of its own. I think it's hockey night. It's Battle of Ontario. It's the fact the guy, as Austin Matthews said, did a hardest shot competition into an empty net. I mean, there's a lot of elements to it, and frankly, I think it's getting people pretty fired up.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, and that's something the Leafs supply that a lot of teams in the league don't, just by the nature of who they are, and the fan base and the media and the coverage and the understanding that it's going to lead to a lot of engagement. And I think that's kind of what the Leafs are indicating. I mean, like if you go through suspensions, you're like, those are worthy suspensions. Like Matthews on Dahlin was worthy. Bunting on Chernak was worthy. Both the Kadris, those are suspensions. So it's not as if it is strange considering they have a reputation as being a kind of a soft team.
Yes.
And yet they get suspended more than anybody else.
Does not make sense. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, and maybe it's not that they're making mistakes on the Leafs plays. Maybe they're missing or overlooking things happening elsewhere. I mean, it might almost be that simple or that complicated. And look, at the end of the day, I don't believe that. I know the guys who work in player safety. I don't think they're sitting around, throwing darts at Leaf jerseys or, I don't think it's that simple. It's just, it is a product of when there's a hit that or a play that, is somewhere in the gray, or if it crosses the line, we can't. I mean, we're all part of the problem. You guys are probably into hour 3 here, breaking this thing down. It gets amplified, and I think that the player safety wants to get it right. And the other part of this that's kind of funny is, yes, I mean, they're going down there for that hearing. tomorrow, and it can be a 6-game suspension, but it doesn't mean it has to be. I mean, there's still a world where, they opt to go for something shorter, and it's almost like we're presupposing the outcome before we even know exactly what it's going to be. And, it's a little strange that there's such a lag between when the incident happened and when that hearing goes down tomorrow afternoon. But, I think that Rielly's going there and the Leafs are going there, the NHLPA, with the idea that they can get some leniency, that there's, whether it's supplying a little bit more of the context or explaining that, he realized he crossed the line, but it was a mistake or an accident. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how Morgan Rielly's going to describe this, but, maybe there's a world that comes in at 4 games instead of something like 6 or more.
CJ, why isn't he on a bird on Sunday morning? Like, just, you want me to fly down there in person? Great, and I'll have lunch with you, and we'll get this over with. Why does it take so long?
Well, I think initially they were waiting to see if there was an injury to Ridley Gregg, they being the, player safety is part of their process. And then obviously they have to go through and decide if it's going to be in person or telephone. And so, probably the earliest that they could have done the hearing was today, by the time that worked itself through yesterday while they were determining what happens. And, when you decide for an in-person hearing, I mean, the player's suspended, automatically, essentially. So they don't necessarily need to, have a decision. And, obviously the Leafs don't play again till tomorrow. So I think all those things kind of go into the mix there. And I'm fascinated to see how this turns out. I mean, I think that look at the way the Leafs spoke about this today, even some of the players, but especially Sheldon Keefe. I mean, that's a reflection of how frustrated the organization is with the process, with thinking that Rielly's, down the tracks here to get, a longer suspension than they think is necessary. And so if that ends up being the case, I'd be curious to see how that's treated. What happens in addition to an appeal to the suspension if there's more, words or whatever. I mean, I just think this has a high degree of flammability to it, and it's not just because of the Toronto media or the Toronto fan base. I think that the Leafs themselves are pretty hot at the fact that this is even on the table, that it could be a lengthy suspension.
Well, I mean, you're always going to advocate for your player. I mean, I got suspended, right. and I remember being on the call with Daryl Sutter, and Daryl was chewing them out, saying, "You're wasting my time. That was a love tap," and blah blah blah. Like, they're gonna advocate for their player. The PA does have to be involved. Like, there's a lot of factors in. I still think it could have been taken care of at least today, because if Ridley Gregg was deemed okay, Sunday, then you get this sorted out today. I guess, Chris, can you think of any in-person hearing that was less than 5? I'm sure I would be shocked. That's what, because I've not heard of an in-person hearing where they were like, okay, you know what, you said your case, or they laid it out, and it's only 2 or it's only 3. Have you, do you, in your memory, think of anyone that happened like that?
I can't. I mean, I'm sure there probably has been one somewhere, but your larger point is correct here. I mean, if it happens very, very rarely, and to the degree that none of us can even think of it. And that's kind of what he's up against. I mean, look at it. It's not the same play, but David Perron was suspended 2 months ago for a cross check, kind of in retaliation. In that case, obviously Artem Zub didn't actually do anything, but at the time that the cross check was delivered, Perron thought that his teammate had been injured by Zub, and so he was retaliating sort of after the play. That there's some parallels here. I mean, I think what really hurts Morgan, in addition to the fact he cross-checked him in the head, is that it comes right after a goal. It comes, not in the run of play. It's not like that. At least Matthews and Dahlin are engaging in a battle, and it goes too far. I think that oddly works in someone like Matthews' favor in that case, because I think it's understandable that he wasn't going out there to hurt the guy. It's just they were, the moment got a little heated. Whereas in Rielly's case, it doesn't look good. The plays stop. So,
CJ, sorry to tell you,
pal. He's up against.
Sorry to tell you, there's a lot of instances where you're like, that's a 5-game suspension, and it's just a fine. So there's no sense of talking about anything in the past, because I've seen that Trouba Frederick play in front of the net was insane, and he got a fine. There is a bunch of hits where it's like fine, and it's like I have the inconsistency is what the problem is. So everyone has their different thoughts and views and whatever what should happen here. The consistency in the past several years is why everyone's so jammed up when they're thinking about what's going to happen here, because it's been way off the charts. Like, you'll see the most egregious thing, and it's a $2,000 fine, and it's like, okay, I guess. And then the next one's 5 games, and then it's a fine. Very inconsistent.
That's what is so frustrating. That's why the Leafs are frustrated. I think we can all speak on their behalf. It's not that they would even – I don't think anyone in the right mind is suggesting Morgan Rielly doesn't deserve a suspension. Of course he does. Like, at least a couple games. You said 2, I said 3, Noodles, you said 4. We're all in the same ballpark, right? Like, obviously that's an infraction that he's going to have to pay a price for, and they're going to suspend him. But the Leafs will probably say what you just said. It's like, and gets back to what you referenced earlier, CJ, about all the suspension for the Leafs. It's like when the Leafs do something, it's like, we got him. Like, we're suspending that guy. We can't miss that. And there's other stuff that happens in other markets, and it's like, well, that's a fine. It's like, how does that work?
How is that
like,
a fine?
How is that? And then that's their gripe, but it doesn't matter. It's over. He's going to get suspended. So what's the aftermath here, CJ? Like, what's the attitude? Like, because the Leafs are backing him up. The Leafs, like, right after the game, Keith said, I thought it was an appropriate reaction. Today, all the players said, if anything, it could have been worse, should have been worse. Like, could this be a galvanizing moment for the Leafs, or is that too much of a reach?
No, I think it could be. I mean, look, this is a team that's looking for one. And, not an apples-to-apples comparison, but, they had a team meeting about the lack of response when Timothy Liljegren was involved with Brad Marchand, crashes into the M boards. No one does anything about it. This is a case where Rielly, was attempting to at least, he thought the team was showing up and he was responding. And it's going to put the team in a bad spot. No matter how many games it is, the Leafs are losing their top player in terms of ice time for, at least the next week and perhaps the next 2, depending how many games that ends up being. And it's a tough spot. I mean, they've fallen back into wild card positioning with the loss on the weekend, and so I think that they've been looking for something. I mean, this team clearly has not been its best self often enough this year, and maybe this is the spark. I don't know. I mean, I certainly sensed the tension today. I was down at practice that isn't often there, especially on an off day, and I know that they do feel pretty strongly that we're on the way towards injustice rather than justice with whatever this ruling is. So, maybe it does somehow turn into a positive.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't feel like one in the moment, though,
no,
right?
And that's the issue. It better not be woe is me, or that's real trouble. Like, the Sheldon Keefe better use this change his attitude quickly, right? Treat it like an injury. You guys talk about coaches all the time. Injured players don't even be around the team. You're out. We're moving on.
Later.
Yeah, like Rielly, it's whether you think it's unjust or what. He's not around, and you have to mean business here because they're not doing themselves any favors, CJ. Like, they're in a fight. 32 games left. They better figure something out here.
Yeah, and I actually you don't want a year, I think, as up and down as this one has been, but I do think it has hurt them to some degree having the kind of coasting through the end of the regular season they've had the last few years, just with such a cushion in the playoff standings and no real race. Like, I think that there could be some positives from, playing really meaningful hockey in March and April before you get to the playoff dance. But, this season has just a lot of things haven't gone right. And Sheldon Keefe himself said recently that, in his estimation, they've only played, kind of up to their potential about half the games. So that means the other half, which is a lot of games, haven't been there. And so, I do feel like they're still kind of looking for something, and you never know what it's going to be. I mean, no one was predicting the Blues of years ago going from last to first and winning a cup. I mean, sometimes you got to experience some depths, and obviously there's still a lot of focus too on the trade deadline and what the GM's going to be able to do here. But in the short term, they got a lot of games, and they're going to be playing them without Morgan Rielly for the foreseeable future.
What about Joseph Woll? Did you hear anything? Do you get an inkling of the plan for him if he gets the green light and continues to progress here after his first full practice today?
Well, I think that they're obviously going to be careful with him with the nature of a high ankle sprain, but it was good news that he not just practiced, but they even had Martin Jones not participate fully in practice so that he could have his own net and he could be part of all the drills and get the reps that way. And so the target had always been, I think, towards the end of February. I mean, perhaps that'll get moved up, with just the nature of this injury. I think it's very much a day-to-day thing. It'll be about putting him through that skate and then, seeing how his body responds, how he feels tomorrow when he gets to the rink. But it's a big step for him to be now fully back at practice and really in the mix here. I would think in the next week or two to be playing a game again.
We'll leave it there, CJ. It should be a busy week. We'll do it again soon.
All right. See you guys.
Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. All right. The tickets were given away this week. Leafs Golden Knights, February 27th. I love it. All right. The Maple Leaf lineup giveaway. Absolutely. Plus, we're throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro Canada. Today's player of the day is Michael Amadio.
Wow.
Michael Amadio, who was here for like 4 games, I believe.
He was here for the stretch where they had like 4 guys in 1 year get claimed off waivers. They'd come up, play great for 3 games, waivers, picked up.
I think the Jets picked him up and then waived them, and then the Golden Knights picked him up.
No, that was that Brooks kid. That was the Brooks kid.
Oh, okay. But
Adam
yeah,
Brooks?
You're right.
Adam
Brooks
Brooks,
did go did go to Winnipeg for sure. All right, there you go. Player of the day, Michael Amadio. All right, Luke's coming up. The ratings are in terms of the Super Bowl in Canada, and they are monster numbers. We'll tell you about that as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers, always dialed in for game time. Hustle in your local BP tonight, asking, what will you remember the most from Super Bowl 58? Kansas City's game-winning drive is winning 48.5%. Kelce yelling at Reed in second at almost 35%. Taylor Swift mania at almost 15%. And Usher's halftime show's only got 3%. Usher's halftime shows it's way down. This is you guys are gonna laugh at this.
You loved it.
No, I thought it was good, but I think Taylor Swift is what we're gonna remember in 30 years. In 30 years, if you'll say Swift, Kelce, Super Bowl, that's what people will remember.
Dude, I don't want to be ignorant, but that halftime show sucked.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was okay, but I think most of them aren't that great. There's been a handful that have been really good the last 20 years. Most of them are just okay. Luke was in the building. Luke was doing his thing on the field after the game. Unbelievable job. Him, James, Davis. Then he was on with Jay, which was awesome. Here's our main man, Luke Willson. How are we feeling, Luke, after a week in Vegas?
You know what? I'm feeling good. I'm back in Ontario now, but Vegas, I got dominated at the pie gout table a little bit, so that's always a tough pill to swallow. But it was a good week, and I had a lot of fun down there.
Okay. We just referenced a few options in terms of what we're going to remember 15, 20 years from now. I personally think it'll be Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Do you have a memory from last night that you think you'll reference in 20 years?
To me, it's got to be the game-winning touchdown there. It just felt like almost destiny. Even being in the building, I sat next to Dave Naylor and Farhan Alji for the whole game, and I'm sitting there and we're looking at each other and it just felt like, hey, it's almost inevitable. Like the Niners couldn't really get up 2 scores, and you're watching it and we're looking at each other, and the Chiefs looked like trash. They offensively, defensively, obviously not. But we're just, when you have a guy
like trash
that can do that, and just have the whole building waiting to be like, okay, it's only a matter of time. I think that being in there was a pretty special thing to witness.
Luke, where, if at all, did Kyle Shanahan go wrong? Was there any missteps that you could circle and say, you know what, that was a difference maker, that was a difference maker? Or like how, from a coaching performance, what did you make of it?
I thought it was pretty poor. I really did. There's a few things that I would point to. Was one, we talk about these Steve Spagnuolo blitzes, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, and it's not all blitzes. Like, we got to make sure, again, this is getting a little technical here, but technically a blitz is when you send 6 rushers. A pressure in the NFL is when you send 5. So just because a DB comes doesn't mean it was a quote-unquote blitz. But between the amount of pressure Spagnuolo sent and the blitzes, he is 74% on the year if you combine those 2 stats. And all of a sudden, it was like these guys were free. And why I say, like, they looked like they weren't ready for it in a weird way. And the Chiefs do a great job disguising it. But you see some of these plays like Trent McDuffie on the big 3rd and 4, the overtime 3rd down, I believe was 3rd and 4 as well, or 3rd and goal from the 4. Chris Jones was unblocked. And it's like, man, how do we make those mistakes of not being able to pre-snap, set the protection up? Like, they're coming. Like I said, Steve Spagnuolo is known for this stuff. This year, he brought either 5 or 6 blitzers or pressures 74% of the snaps. And yes, they're exotic, but you got 2 weeks to prepare for it. Like, you got to be on top of your X's and O's. So I thought, again, from a prep standpoint, the Niners struggled at terrible moments to actually pick up these, exotic pressures and blitzes. And the next thing was they didn't run the ball successfully, in my opinion. Yes, McCaffrey had 80, but he had 22 carries. So he only averaged 3.6. But there was a probably the third quarter, I felt like they kind of abandoned the run. The first drive of the game, I was sitting there, I'm like, this Niners team is back. McCaffrey's running all over the place. He might have 150 yards by the end of this thing. And like I said, they obviously adjusted, that being the Chiefs. But then all of a sudden, it was like you made no adjustments and didn't really revisit it in the third quarter. So I thought that Steve Spagnuolo really got the better of Kyle Shanahan.
Partsy, first of all, I want to say there's a quote about walking together in life as champions. I think we'll do that. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be your Partsy this year. Thank you for everything.
Hey, now my question, dog, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
We came together from a quote when you first told me you like coming on OverDrive and you didn't like the host. So that's when we bonded together. So I'll love you for that, Partsy, forever. I want to know what happens if you steamroll Pete Carroll in the Super Bowl and almost knock him on his ass. Does he tell you to sit down and don't think about getting up?
I don't think so, but that was the most jaw-dropping moment, and kind of going back to the first question. When I think of Super Bowl, I'm going to think of Spagnuolo and Mahomes' last touchdown there, but a close third is that clip. I mean, what are we doing? Again, I'm glad it worked out. They won. But, this is Andy Reid. This isn't some schmuck, This isn't some complete bum here. And this is a guy, and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, who have basically together with Mahomes created the greatest pass-catching tight end of all time. And I'm not taking anything away from Travis. He made a ton of plays again. But it's like, I don't know if Pacheco fumbling there warrants you going and screaming at your head coach and bumping into him. I was pretty, jaw-dropping stuff there. I did not have that on my bingo card, let's put it that way.
Well, he's really put himself in a position, Travis Kelce, where I think his greatness is now overshadowed, right? He's dating Taylor Swift. He can't control the way people feel about that, but that is a big part of the conversation. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, et cetera. And then Andy Reid is basically unanimously loved. Right? Everyone looks at him, big, jolly guy, great guy, Andy Reid, and it's like you're going nuts on this guy. And I saw the stats last night. Travis Kelce in his last 13 playoff games, 113 catches for 1,271 yards and 13 touchdowns. That's absurd. That's insane.
It's absurd.
Insane. And yet this guy's a snap show, and he's doing his Viva Las Vegas stuff, and it's like there's so much else that comes with Kelce that in a weird way it's like you're overshadowing that this guy's put on a clinic the last 5 or 6 years at his position that's been just as good as what Mahomes has done at his.
Yes, I would totally agree with that, Hayes. And again, I have said many times this year that I think he's the greatest pass-catching tight end in the history of the game. And I also think, you look at just greatest postseason pass catcher, wide receivers included, it's him and Jerry Rice. And you can make the argument either way, but I don't think there's really anyone else in that conversation at this point. And so you put it that way, and you're like, man, you think of playoffs, I mean, the numbers you just said, like you said, absurd. And the things you kind of think about are like, man, you bumped into the head coach, almost ran him over. The Swift thing. I mean, there's a couple tweets, and I'll just leave it at this, but some of the commercials he's endorsing, I don't think there's a bit of a divide, if you will, on some of those things.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
A little wild.
It is a little wild. And that type of reaction last night, that felt eerily similar to me and Al's brother in our own group chat, in our own little text chain.
Oh, what are you guys saying?
We still haven't found. Have we found a winner, guys? Like, who
Partsy,
won? Like,
before these guys.
I love it.
Get him in here. He's been downstairs drinking coffee for the last 3.5 hours. Here he is, jacked up. Matt Foley, a.k.a. Al's brother, a.k.a. my Partsy, a.k.a. a champion, may I state. Because you got your partner here, Luke Willson. I got to have mine in here, Al's brother.
Al's brother, do you have a champion? Do you have a champion in mind? Do you guys think you won the whole season?
1,000%. I don't understand why you guys seem to think that you didn't. That we didn't.
Real quick, if I might jump in. Hayes, are you not going to fire this guy? He just bet against Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well,
for the third time this playoffs.
Yes. Hayes, let's just look at the tape, man. And I'm trying to say this as your friend. As O-Dog let you know, I've never liked the host of the show.
Right.
But this guy barely won 500. And in the playoffs, I believe he went, 3-8, 3-9, 4-9, and bet against Patrick Mahomes 3 straight weeks. And he's going to come on here and claim he's a champion?
Wow. Better than that.
The Super Bowl was even.
Oh, it's better than the 2-8 record you put out in the playoffs, but that's okay.
That is valid. See, that's the thing.
First
you guys,
and foremost,
go ahead.
I demand some respect on my name right now. You're talking to, let me know you're talking to, Al's brother. Back-to-back season champions, and I'm 1 for 2 in the Super Bowl. I had one bad playoff run, okay? I'm not taking any sort of nonsense from a guy who bet against Patrick Mahomes not once, not twice, but 3 times. You tripled down on the greatest football player currently living.
Yeah. It is tough to explain.
It's tough to swallow.
When you put it that way.
Hey, you know what it is?
It's tough.
All week, right? All week I'm having conversations with people, and you're having your stopping chats, chit-chat, and they're like, oh, who you like in the Super Bowl? And I'm like, I'm kind of going back and forth. And every single time, it's like, I like what I see from the Niners. They're the better team. The matchup well. The run game should be good. If Shanahan, third time's the charm, can he just stick to the run game? Then I kind of like where things are at with them. And everyone says, yeah, but you can't bet against Mahomes. But that's the only thing people said. I can come up with 50 different reasons why the Niners were worth betting on, but anyone who said, yeah, but Mahomes. And it turns out
they were right.
Sadly, that was correct information. It's just because at the end of the day, it was Mahomes in the fourth quarter, final 2 minutes, and it was Mahomes in overtime with an amazing drive to win the game. And that's it. It was just Mahomes.
It was Mahomes.
It really was. So,
guys, I think the only way we settle it, we might be still at it just dead draw. We could do a situation maybe Friday, where it's just like a season-long trivia family feud type thing where you pick your fighter. My guy's my Partsy, and it's one of you two go at it. And it's 10 questions in 30 seconds about this season in the NFL. And the winner, it's over. After that, we'll know who wins the whole shooting match.
Am I the host?
Yes, you would be the
question master.
I'm cool. I'd put Al's brother in the ring any day of the week. Al's brother is a savant.
You're picking your fighter as Al's brother versus my Partsy?
He's a savant.
If there's one thing that I have, it is information. There is some info stuck in the noodle here.
That's right. I like that. I'd accept those terms.
I like this as well. Partsy. The only thing I get a little worried about was obviously we're all in the text thread and we're talking about how we're going to decide this because we were +6 in the season. The Super Bowl, we tied. They were +4 in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, Doogie, with the absolute jam job of the year, puts a tweet out there crowning the Muppets, Hazenbot, as champion. So we got to make sure Doogie is either neutral or we got to grease him to put him on our side.
Doogie, do you have any comment on that, Doogie? Do you have anything to say for yourself on the whole season?
Yes, I do as a whole season, but I'll aim to the playoffs here. It was a deep dive on what Hazenbro did here. They were leading in the playoffs.
That's right.
They were up +4. That's why I deemed and posted that tweet.
Thank you, Doogie.
That's right.
That's the only explanation.
Get back in the GIMP box back there.
Doogie's a man of integrity. And listen, if anything, Doogie jammed us. The anthem, we bet on the anthem.
That was ludicrous.
And it still hasn't been clarified. I think that was about 89 on the nose, which would have been under.
She added a second word. There
Exactly.
Was a second
you can't create your own lyrics. Like, what the hell are we talking about here? It's outrageous.
I thought she actually, I'll be honest, somebody got to her and said,
She bet the over.
Stretch it out. She stretched it out.
She did.
She finished, and then she was like, I'll add a little, parting gift here.
An extra word.
An extra,
doubled up
an
on
extra
brave.
word is outrageous.
Disgusting.
Furthermore, we bet it at 89.5. By the time it hit, when Reba got out there, it was up to like 95.5.
Also weird.
Which, again, would have hit the under on the added lyrics, which no one's supposed to really do. But anyway, listen, it's all good. We probably should win. We were +4. We squared off yesterday, but we're good for competition. We are competitors. We are Eagles. These guys are Ducks. We'll take you on in trivia. We'll take you on in anything you want. Whenever you want it.
My fighter is my part seat.
All right,
I'll
put Al's brother in there. I'll be the puppeteer. He and I, it's going to be like a Rocky montage. You and I were doing trivia 6 a.m. every morning this week.
Oh, yeah.
6 a.m. every morning this week. We do trivia.
Well, Hayes, you're the natural host. Me and Noodles don't have to host.
Noodles host. Noodles is perfect at that. You and I need to be in the corner of our fighters. Noodles is the best host in the business when it comes to trivia.
And it's Family Feud. You got 30 seconds, 10 questions, and boom, or how the music when the answer turns over, everything.
Done.
Noodles, you got to wear the robe,
I just want to clarify one thing. So we're saying that whoever wins this Family Feud-style trivia is the official OverDrive champion of this football season.
Yes,
undisputed.
Yes,
undisputed.
No more whining, no more complaining.
World champion.
Exactly. No
There's
more
got to be a
back
prize
east.
here, though. Like we have to have a trophy created or some form of a prize.
Yes,
where
you're right.
we each put
I
in.
can't believe you're picking your fighter as that guy right there.
Dude,
I can't.
This guy
believe
lives, eats, breathes, cruises football.
That's it. That's
Right?
all.
That's his life, man.
That's all.
Al's brother's going to pull
That's all
out
I got.
stats that you've never seen before.
Doogie, I'm in Windsor for a couple of days. You mind shooting me your e-transfer?
Exactly. You want to hear a disgusting stat, though? And this is something like you guys were talking about Kyle Shanahan. In the fourth quarter onwards, with him at the Super Bowl, including the Atlanta Falcons situation, he got outscored 68-12 in the fourth quarter onwards in 3 Super Bowls.
That's gross.
68-12.
That's really. That's like I think he looked out. He looked out of class in the fourth quarter last night. I thought the overtime stuff was goofy, Luke. Like I don't know what was the vibe like in the building because it didn't seem like anyone knew what the rules were, and I'm not sure Shanahan knew what the rules were.
Yeah. Also, I was shocked that they elected to receive.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, I mean, again, and I get there's maybe an argument the other way of like, hey, we want to put the pressure on the other team. Like, let's put things in the situation here. If there's a guy who can handle pressure, it's Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. In fact, I would almost rather Patrick Mahomes to have less pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and also it's a completely different play calling when you know you have 4 downs to play with. You know, so you're sitting there and if you're Andy Reid and you're like, okay, we got to go get a field goal at bare minimum, where there's no punts, like you're basically giving them an advantage. And the way I see it, and I get there's arguments both ways. So I was shocked when it's like they won the coin toss and they were like, yeah, we want the ball. And I'm like, why on earth would you want the football?
Mm-hmm.
Would you not want to know, like, hey, we can go down here and win? Even to a degree, I'm not saying you do this, but let's say you've got a great 2-point play dialed up. You know, you've got a shot then. If the Chiefs go down and score, you can still win the Super Bowl by going for 2.
Well, and
like,
apparently the Chiefs were going to do that.
Yeah.
Apparently the Chiefs players said from camp, we were talking about it, and for 2 weeks we had multiple meetings on if we don't start with the ball and the Niners score a touchdown in overtime, we're going to punch in 6 and go for 2. So Andy Reid had everything figured out, and Shanahan doesn't sound like they spent a second on it.
Yeah,
which to me is an awful look for an NFL
Eric
coach.
Armstead was like, I didn't even know about the new rules till I looked up at the Jumbotron and saw the new rules.
That's
How
a
do you
bad
not
look,
know?
man. That's a bad look for Shanahan. That's a bad look.
And back to Al's brother stat, I mean, that is wildly disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, like, for a guy who's a savant like he is, which he is, like, as the game goes on, you should almost get better, because you have so many options and be like, okay, this is what, the defense is adjusting to. I've got an answer for this. I've got an answer for this. Okay, I've got an answer for this thing. Like, whatever you do, especially this offense, should have an answer. You got Kittle, you got Debo, you got Ayuk, and you got McCaffrey. And there was a part of me yesterday where I almost felt like some of what was happening was they're like, we are going to get the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hand every single play. And McCaffrey touched the ball 30 times. He had 22 carries, he had 8 catches for 80 yards. And obviously McCaffrey should be the main guy. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like when Debo was a little hobbled, Ayuk, but like none of these guys. Kittle had 2 catches for 4 yards.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to these quote-unquote superstar weapons? I mean, I would argue that the biggest plays were Conley and Juwan Jennings outside of McCaffrey, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, what is going on? And I will say, like, I believe Debo had, like, 3 catches on 11 targets or something like that. So they did try and get him the football. But the strange one was it seemed like Ayuk was just kind of out there at times, and he is the guy had, I think, 1,300 yards this year. So
Kittle's chewing on it, Partsy. Kittle's chewing on it.
Well, here, let me read these stats for you quickly, and this is exactly what we're saying. Mahomes to Hardman, MVS, and Watson. Mecole Hardman, Marquise Valdez-Scantling, and Watson. He went 9 for 13, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Purdy to Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, 8 for 20 for 86 yards.
Yeah.
No touchdowns.
That's not good enough.
That's crazy.
That is terrible. And the next thing I'll say, just to add to that, is what has been the narrative all year with the Niners. They get a lead, look out. They get a lead, look out. This team plays so well with the lead. They can run the ball on you. They use their play action. They can basically just drown you and beat you in so many different ways. They got weapons across the board. Well, they had a lead the entire game pretty much until the fourth quarter. And it was like, this is, the way this was shaping up early, I'm like, this is about to be a 20-point beatdown. And it was, to me, I thought the Niners, they got unlucky. First and foremost, they got very unlucky. I thought the Drake Greenlaw injury was very, very tough. I think Debo did get a little hampered by his hamstring, but they got unlucky. But then the next thing I'll say is they just choked.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality situation. They did not play well all playoffs. They played very poorly and should have lost to Green Bay. They played even worse, I thought, against Detroit and were gifted a W there. And they had the Kansas City Chiefs on the ropes for 3.5 quarters, and their offense could not get it done. So it's going to be, if you're in that Niners locker room, you're not feeling great, Taves. Put it that way.
No. And on Friday, you'll play the role of Kyle Shanahan, and Al's brother will play the role of Andy Reid.
And don't bet against the Chiefs.
And we'll be the Chiefs on Friday. All right, Luke, we'll chat with you Friday. Thanks for this, buddy. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Talk soon.
There he is, Luke Willson. Quick update on the ratings that have come in here on CTV, TSN.
19 million, I think?
Yeah, nearly 50% of Canada's population watched some part of the Super Bowl, which is outrageous. Because not 50% of the American audience. I don't believe the American population would hit 50%. Like, I think they're under that.
Yeah.
And it peaked at 12.6 million.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's like a third of Canadians were watching
Taylor
the game
Swift,
at one point.
I'm telling you,
Big part
was
of it.
wearing his Travis
I saw
Kelce
that.
jersey.
Yep.
FanDuel
Like,
the over-under at 17.5.
Over.
Hammered.
Over. I love that.
Hammered
I love
that
that on
prop.
FanDuel. All right.
Yeah.
Big week. 2-a-days. Me and you.
No,
Trivia in the morning.
not
Trivia at night.
Being all over it.
Trivia in the morning.
Two-a-days.
Trivia at night. Everything on the line Friday. Al's brother, great seeing you as always. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, so we've been asking, all afternoon, what are we going to remember most from the Super Bowl? And I think our guy Jim tweeting in with the perfect answer. Said, watching Nick Taylor go birdie, birdie, par, birdie, 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 all during the most boring first half of football being played on the other screen. That's how you live life, man. 2 screens, watching Nick Taylor put on a clinic and watch the Super Bowl all at the same time.
Telling you, Nicky Taylor, he's going to win the U.S. Open.
Well, the way he
Wow.
putts. The way he
puts and the way he drives it.
Yeah. All right. His short game's phenomenal. I'll say this, too. Scotty Scheffler
Oh my God.
has to learn how to putt and get up and down.
He's in the mix every week, and he misses 15 10-foot birdie putts.
Here's an answer I need for tomorrow. Trivia for you. Homework. Has a number 1 ranked player in the world ever putted a ball into a bunker? Has that ever happened?
No, but I saw it happen on Saturday when he did it.
He did it yesterday. He did it on Sunday. He did it at the end of the third round, which was played Sunday morning.
Right. He putted. He had a 20-foot birdie putt in the bunker.
He did get up and down, which was pretty impressive.
For 5.
But that's got to be a first. Number 1 player in the world putting a ball in a bunker with a putter in his hand. Anyway, Tiger, the reveal tonight. Tiger speaking on Wednesday. Riviera this week. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out today. It's been a wild one. We appreciate all the help, as always. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, and web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tomorrow. We're back tomorrow at...
My partsy doesn't like the host. Neither do I. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.